Welcome to For the Love of Books, Bees Books Edition, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries.
Hello, this is Pari.
And this is Jenny, and we're here to talk about
Bees Books. So, you're feeling a bit under the weather?
Yes, I am.
Jenny?
Feeling a bit germy.
Yeah. So we have an excuse to sneeze and cough and just like make weird noises.
Yes, that will be me. If you hear anything like that, it will.
Or will it?
Or the gremlins sometimes.
Oh, that's true as well. So the theme that we gave us this week is discoveries.
Mhm.
I would like to know, Jenny, what is something you've discovered recently that you've loved?
Oh, that's quite a hard question. Cookies.
Did you discover cookies?
No, a particular flavour of cookie. Now, I like chocolate, but I prefer my cookies to be just kind of chocolate chip cookies.
Okay.
But these are triple chocolate cookies. So there's dark chocolate, white chocolate, and milk chocolate, all in this cookiness.
That's pretty good.
And yes, with a glass of milk. Perfect.
Very American of you. Do you want to give a shout out to the brand? Maybe they're sponsor our
I
podcast.
would if I could remember it. I just know that the box is blue.
This is like people coming in and asking us in the library, oh, we know the book, the cover is blue, and you've done that to the whole different category. That's excellent.
What about you?
Easter eggs.
You've just discovered Easter eggs.
Like giant.
Oh.
I've never grown up eating Easter eggs, and I've eaten the tiny ones, but I mean, it's like I don't see what the fuss is about. I know people are obsessed with it. The Cadbury cream eggs and things, and like some people get really excited when they find them outside of Easter, and I'm
Absolutely.
like, I don't care.
Mhm.
But then Jack, yesterday, my partner, he bought me a reduced,
Mhm.
fancy, posh egg. It was, I think, from Asda,
Mhm.
dark chocolate with orange and nuts.
Oh, nice.
And like a giant thing. Like when I opened the box, I was a bit alarmed because it was like just a giant egg. I was like, what am I supposed to do with it? Because I tried sort of, you can't see, but I'm like holding it up to my mouth, and I was like,
Even with the smaller ones, it's that, will I break it? How will I break it?
Yeah.
Do I want it in loads of pieces when it breaks?
Yeah.
Or do I want like two halves of the shell? How did you?
Jack took out a knife from his person. I don't know where he had it. And this was after dinner as well. So I don't know what was going on. And he just like sliced through the thing and like broke me a bit. And then it was delicious. I see what the fuss is about with this specific posh egg.
I like Easter eggs, and I don't know what it is because it's the same chocolate, but because it's in that thinner kind of shell, and there's like a way of eating it.
What is the way of eating?
No, I mean everybody has their own way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They bring out a big hatchet or a knife, or they just kind of roll it on a table until it kind of smushes. Some people like it in the fridge. Some people like it out the fridge. There's a lot going on there.
Jack did suggest putting it in the fridge, and I rejected his idea because it would become hard, I think, and I just want my chocolate to be soft and melty, I think. I'll find out because I've never had it before. But I'd also made a discovery last year, Easter egg related, where I'd gone to Lidl and got a Ferrero Rocher Easter egg, and I was so excited. Because I love, through by your expression, I can tell where this is going. And like I said, I've never eaten an Easter egg before, and I was like, oh my god, it's going to be this giant Easter egg full of like either mini Ferrero Rochers or like the filling of a Ferrero Rocher. I was happy either way. And when I got home and I broke it open, and it wasn't even egg shaped, it was just round, first of all. And
my face fell there because that's not an Easter egg then, is it? It's
it
an Easter
was
round.
hollow. It was hollow. I was outraged because what a scam! What a scam they're running. They're not even reproducing the best part of a Ferrero Rocher. So that was a bad discovery. This is a good discovery. Yes. So now that I've discovered, so both food related.
I was just going to say that, and chocolate related. Yes.
It's that time of year.
Yes.
Well, what about your non-culinary discoveries?
Well, if you remember last time, I kept the book aside from The Sound Of, and the sound was riot.
Oh no!
Yes. I'm going to leave that for the next one. But the first one is The Train of Dark Wonders by Alex Bell. It is a junior book. And yes, I'm trying to remember why it's discoveries. Oh yeah, because basically, so this young girl kind of inherits something, and then she discovers something about it. That's why I've squished it into discoveries.
Right.
Literally finished it this morning.
Oh, excellent.
So I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay, and it's a book that I had put on the display and I've eyed. I haven't read, so I'm really excited to learn about it as well. So my book is also a book that I finished this morning on the train, and it's called How to Give Your Child a Lifelong Love of Reading by Alex Johnson. And I have squeezed it in. The discovery theme is because he talks a lot about how to get kids to discover not just the love of reading, but different kinds of books and different kinds of formats and genres. And it's aimed at parents mostly. But I think, like, I didn't read it as a parent. I read it as just somebody who loves children's books and somebody who works in a library. And I think it can be easily adapted to a library
Is it a
setting.
non-fiction book?
It is a non-fiction book, but really nicely written. So I think it's been published by the CLPE, which is the Center for Literacy in Primary Education, because their logo is in the back. So it's super accessible. Like, he's just written it as like just a friend sitting, over a cup of coffee or tea or hot chocolate and just giving you advice, and based on his own love of books and his role as a parent, but also like studies and stuff. But he doesn't make it academic. So he writes about why books are important, but he's also very careful to be non-judgy and to encourage and invite others to be non-judgy, which I really love. Because, like, in terms of genres, in terms of age range as well, like a lot of, I think, adults think kids should graduate from picture books. So, like, picture books is just like stepping stones to reading proper books. Whereas he and I also agree. He says that, you should just let kids read whatever they want, whenever they want. Otherwise, if you're going to have some negative attitude towards books, they're going to pick up on it. And they're going to be feeling a bit shamed for it, and that'll like sort of tinge their attitude negatively towards reading as a whole. So he has lots of tips about how you can make reading a joyful and fun and experience for everybody. And in the end of the book, which I haven't yet gotten through, he has a bunch of helpful sources. So he's peppered them throughout the book. He has like different sort of chapters. So one is why it's good for children, how to find good books, starting to read and how you can help them out. Then importance of non-fiction, importance of different formats like graphic novels, audiobooks, and like different genres as well, and picture books. And that's when he talks about how picture books should just be for everybody, and how the different places and like settings and activities that you can do and take your kids to find more kinds of books. And in the end, it's super helpful. So he has a list of places, websites, books, and just like all kinds of things that's helpful for parents and librarians.
And is the writing blue inside the book?
It is not. Is it? No.
Oh no, it's just the way the light was reflected.
Yeah. And there's also essays in the middle of, and so I'll tell you, by some writers and illustrators and teachers, booksellers and librarians, just about different focus, so picture books or libraries or young adult books. So like Jacqueline Wilson starts one, then Cressida Cowell has another, and Michael Rosen as well ends with one, just talking about like libraries or picture books or like poetry and things. So he's really open-minded in his approach, and he talks about his experiences with his kids, and they're like, this is how I tried, but I tried not to get my feelings too hurt if they didn't love the kinds of books that I did. And I tried not to judge them too much for liking the kinds of books that I thought secretly were rubbish. So it's really sort of a very friendly advice book. It is like kind of an advice book.
Who is he? Is he just a person who's, well, not just a person, but is he an author himself?
He doesn't actually say. So I looked him up on Goodreads. And he does have different books. So he seems to be a book person, because he's written a lot of non-fiction books about books and bookshops and libraries. So that seems to be his thing. I don't know who. Oh, he's a freelance journalist. It says right in the back. I looked inside. So yeah, he's a journalist. So his books include Improbable Libraries, A Book of Book Lists, Book Town, Shelf Life, and Edward Lear and the Pussycat. famous writers and their pets. So this is his.
This is an interesting
Yeah.
book.
Mhm.
Tell me that one again.
Edward Lear and the Pussycat,
Ooh.
famous writers and their pets. And he also writes, so his knowledge is really wide ranging, which I love, because he'll just like casually mention, like drop the name of either a place or a bookshop or a website or a book that sounds so interesting. So now that I finished reading the sort of main part of the book, I want to go back and make a note of all the resources that he mentions and follow the. So it's a little bit like sort of crumbs that he's left for people who are interested. And I definitely want to introduce this book to my book bug parents as well, because I believe like he's talking to like me. I'm convinced.
Absolutely.
I think it would be really helpful to people who maybe are not as sort of in the children's book world, but it's also helpful for someone like me to have all that information condensed and also all the resources, like I said, things I don't know that I'm going to follow up on. So just a great book all around.
I think it would be a great book to give somebody who is a new parent who, not everybody has grown up reading themselves.
Absolutely.
And so don't know how to pass that on to their kids.
Exactly.
And something like that would probably help them make those decisions.
Absolutely. And he writes it as well in a super non-judgmental fashion, like even to the reader. So he invites them to not be judgy about books, but he's also not judgy about whether you read or don't read, or whether you came from a reading family or not. His thing is why, studies and research has shown that like surrounding kids with books and reading to them even when they're like in sort of the mumps, like the third trimester, is like really helpful to all sorts of cognitive things and literacy things and like later life as well. But these are all things that some of us know, but a lot of us don't.
No, exactly.
And it's things that they might not have even thought of. Like in my book bug, they're mostly babies. And some of the adults will be like, what's the point of reading to babies? But he properly articulates it in a way that's really easy to understand. So it doesn't feel like you're reading a textbook. Or like, it's just like really helpful guide, I think, to people, to anybody.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So do you want to tell me about your book?
I do. So, The Chain of Dark Wonders. Our heroine is called, I'm literally finished it this morning, I can't remember her name, Bess.
Oh, that's unusual.
Yes, she is Elizabeth, but it's called Bess.
Yeah.
She does not like being called Elizabeth.
All right, okay.
So her grandfather passes away, and he owned an auditorium. So this kind of museum that just had odd things in it. So like an albino alligator, a doll that comes alive at night. There's like very much touches of magic in it.
I was there too, with all the odd things. The doll that comes alive at night.
Yeah, she likes to stab people with a pin. Yeah, not everything in it is bad, just odd. But basically, she kind of inherits this. So her dad and her uncle, who were the sons of Pops, thought they were going to inherit it, and one of the uncle was like, well, I'm just going to close it down and do something else, and her dad was like, I don't really know what to do. But Bess has always been in the auditorium. She's like, like her grandfather's apprentice, basically, so knows like not all, as we find out, but a lot of the secrets, and how things work. So she's given the auditorium, but it kind of gets slightly out of hand. There's these flowers, the whispering flowers, I think they're called, who kind of try to take over the building because they're not getting magic food. I'm saying this in a non-linear way. It's just like throwing information at you.
It's great information. Your choices of like knowledge are very intriguing. I also see a ghost cat.
Yes, there is a ghost cat. There's ghost gummy bears.
Of course.
Yes. And there's a train. So what she discovers basically is that she's not been shown everything, because obviously Pops probably thought he had more time and could show her everything. So she doesn't know that these flowers need to be fed basically magic beans. And she doesn't know where to get magic beans. She knows there's odd things in the auditorium, but she doesn't need to explain them, if you know what I mean. They're just, what she's used to. Whereas other people will look at the stabby doll and say that's quite scary, or, whatever. But these magic flowers that she learns need magic food to kind of calm them down. So she doesn't know how to do that. So she kind of searches around and she stumbles upon a station, a train station underneath the auditorium. And there is the Chain of Dark Wonders, which apparently her grandfather knew about and would quite often go on adventures to different lands on this train and discover new things. And that's how the auditorium have some of their exhibits. So she thinks, right, okay, this is what I need to do. So there's a big whole issue about how she goes on the train and everything. There's some ninja mice, which are very cool. And there's some children on the train. And basically they get sent on a quest. And I'm not going to spoil it too much, but they have to find a gobstopper in one of the lands that only opens up every 50 years. So the train can have access to it for 3 nights every 50 years. And there's this gobstopper there that has magical properties. And it's the land of, I think it's like the land of Halloween sweets. It is in fact the land of Halloween sweets. However, they get to Land of Halloween Sweets, it's not been opened for 50 years or whatever, and changes have happened since the last people have went in. And there's a candy maker, who's kind of taking...
Sounds more sinister.
Yes, he is quite sinister. So they have to go on lots of adventures and they discover lots of different things along the way. There's lots of kind of mentions of like storybooks and things like that, the stories that we're familiar with, but how they probably would really have been, if you know what I mean. So the train goes to this place, but it can go to other like lands, like fairy tale lands and things like that. But this one's very much Halloween themed. So there's pumpkins and there's
the candy maker.
Yes, in charge of everything. There's, as I say, the ghost gummy bears. There's candy dragons. There's all sorts of like cool stuff. And Bess quite likes it. Not in a like I'm evil and scary, but she kind of sees the other side to some things, if you know what I mean. Yes, that's quite a scary dragon, but actually if you rub its nose it just turns into a pussycat. That kind of a thing.
Oh, I love it.
So her and the kind of 3 kids go about their adventures. There's all sorts of monsters, inverted commas, sort of roaming about. There's weird and wonderful things, and then they get to the candy maker's kind of castle, haunted house type thing, and discover something that there's a twist to it, shall we say. And it was just a fun book, a little bit younger, I would say, than I'm used to. It could have been twice the size, or 3 times if it had been an adult book. And some of the things they do, you kind of went, why would you do that? Even if you were a kid, that's not normal. That's not what you would actually have done. But then you remember it's a kid's book and it's supposed to be full of adventure, and it wouldn't have ran straight if they didn't go into the cave, because you have to go into the cave if it's there, that kind of thing. So a little bit younger than I'm used to, but still fun. There's some illustrations through it as well. I think there is one of the candy maker, which I'm not going to scare you with. But there's all sorts of things, and what I really liked was the way that it was interwoven with kind of folklore and fairy tales, just kind of hinted at here and there, but they were kind of familiar but changed slightly, if that makes sense. And I did like the ending. So Bess herself doesn't really fit in her own world. She's a bit of an oddity herself at school. She's not bullied, but people she thought were her friends are kind of shunned her and all that kind of stuff. But she finds friends with these kids on the train because they've all got something about them. And she discovers something about herself later on. But at the end, it sets you up for another story. So she basically finds the food for the flowers and she feeds them, and they change slightly. So instead of just whispering in the background, they actually kind of talk to her and tell her why they're there. And then it kind of goes, so you need to watch out for this. And then you go, ding, book 2 soon.
And we do have the second book.
It's the second book. I never even, because I just finished it this morning, and I've even investigated. I will read the second one. As I say, even though it was a bit young for me, because I want to find out what happens. I like the world. I liked her mum and dad, who were just kind of, obviously her granddad was kind of this big adventurer, but her mum and dad are very much, they have their tea at this time, they go to bed at this time, they listen to the radio at this time, and she doesn't quite fit in, but she loves them so much that she tries.
Yeah.
And she's a bit worried when she goes on this train, because she goes on it and doesn't tell her parents, and then it goes, and she's kind of like, oh, and they're like, yeah, we're used to this with your granddad. We can do this. And she's like, all right, okay. Worried about nothing there. So I'm quite interested to see where it progresses.
Yeah.
I like the other characters as well. So yeah, a fun book, full of discoveries actually.
It sounds very much like when you were sort of talking about all the lands it explores, like the Magic Faraway Tree series, the different lands, and you go there, and even like what you were talking about with the fairy tales and folklore, like that had, like, I still remember one of the lands had like Little Miss Muffet and like the spider and all the nursery rhymes characters and stuff. And it was a book that was like my first love. I think that, like, I remember the series, the Magic Faraway Tree series, which made me fall in love with books. And I can just imagine that this would be something like that for newer readers.
Absolutely. I can see that they will travel. So at the beginning, when she discovers the station, there's no train there, but the train comes as like part of a carnival, but then the train leaves the tracks because she's like, oh, how is it going to go anywhere? The carnival itself was really good, and at that point I was like, oh no, I like this. I like the auditorium, I like the odd things that she had, but the fact that there's this train that can basically go anywhere, and they kind of hint about the other places it can go. They've not went to the other places yet, but I imagine that's what's going to happen in the future books. She's also got her own story happening. Like she's got a book that she presses flowers in, and the type of book reacts with the flowers, because I'm assuming it's like the magic book. So she presses like I'm not saying this for definite, but I think it's like an apple kind of flower, and then an apple tree grows in her books. Whenever she opens it, there's apple tree, and it produces apples, and the apples do different things. We all know about poisoned apples from fairy stories, about maybe, I think there's a mention about the blossom makes you tell the truth or something. There's wee kind of hints about that, which I'm sure will be developed. So there's quite a lot going on that I think will progress. I'm quite excited to see.
And even if it doesn't, like, it's still sort of cool that there's like, there's all these things in the world full of possibilities that are maybe not explored in the book, but it like gives your imagination such a jump start.
Absolutely. You wanted to go on that train. And the train itself, there's loads of exciting things on the train itself, but the fact it also goes to these places, immediately you kind of go, oh, I wish it would take me here, or I wish I walked into the carriage and there was this. There's a lot of imagination in this book, and that's what I love about books, especially children's books, is that there's more in it.
I think Alex Johnson would absolutely. Like completely approve of this book, because it's like it's just fun.
Yes,
it's fun and adventure and magic and weird things, which is all like a great recipe.
And as you said before, you kind of know where it's going. You know that something not bad is going to happen. It's going to resolve itself basically. But it's still enjoyable.
And it's also, like he says in that as well, that there are some things that, like, as adults now we take for granted, like in terms of the story structure and even like you were saying in terms of the plot and stuff. But for new readers, or even like struggling readers, or readers who've come to books later, like young, not like 4 or 3 or whatever, everything is new. So even if like, they're like finding out all these things for the first time, and then you don't know what book it is that they're going to end up falling in love with.
Absolutely. You could give the same book to 20 different kids, and 3 of them will love it. 6 of them will go, I'll read the second one. And 8 of them, my maths is terrible, will go, no, that's not for me.
Which is fine.
But they'll have something else that they'll like. That's the magic of books.
So definitely. I think now we're going to take a short break while we go and cough and sneeze.
Yes.
And we'll be back in a bit. And we are back.
We have coughed and we have sneezed.
Yeah.
We have checked our recording hasn't been interrupted by gremlins.
Yeah.
It's all good.
It's all good. So back to discovering things and discoveries. I don't know why I said discovering things. My second book is Tintin.
This is not what I was expecting.
Yes, you looked very taken aback. It's also puzzlingly volume 2 and volume 3.
What happened to volume 1?
I returned it. I
Yeah.
borrowed it and I returned it. So secret behind the scenes information. This was not going to be my original contribution. But I have been betrayed by circumstances beyond my control.
Absolutely.
So I'll save that book for another theme. So I have Tintin is, well, it's full of discoveries, right? If you
Yes.
know Tintin.
Yes.
I don't know Tintin that well. I think as a kid it did pass me by, but it wasn't like some kids or grown-ups, like they grow up with Tintin. Whereas for me, even the movie, the new movie, or newish, I guess, for new to me because I only watched it last month for the first time. And I loved it. I loved the movie. I loved the hijinks and the silliness and the dog. I loved Snowy. I was like, oh, maybe I should revisit the book. So for me, I'm making a project of reading all the Tintin comics. So I'm discovering that I love the silliness and the not taking itself too seriously. And just like complete randomness. Because I think it started off as comics. Not like books, but like in a strip in the newspaper or something. So it feels a very stilted,
Like comic strip.
yeah. So it feels like very you're just writing things to like keep the action going. So it's completely chaotic, like in the beginning. Then I think in the book second or third book, it gets like there's a plot and there's like things. This one, so the volume 2 is so these are really handy and we have all the volumes, so these are collected editions, and our library luckily has them all, like all the Tintin books, and in these handy like miniature volumes. So the volume 2 has 3 books and volume 3 has 3 books, and I think volume 1 had only 2 or something, the mad ones. But even here, like I didn't realize how silly Tintin is. Like I just thought in my head, I was like, oh, it's like a mystery and like a detective story, and but like just random things. Everyone is first of all trying to kill Tintin
Okay.
for like something or the like. When he goes to, I think he's in the Amazon. Everyone is trying to kill him. When he goes to like England, he comes to England and then Scotland. So the Black Island is in Scotland. As you can see, he's very fetchingly attired in a kilt.
Nice.
Because someone tried to kill him and he's like his clothes are burnt off, so he's borrowed one from a random Scotsman. Goes to America, everyone's trying to kill him. Then he goes to Egypt, death. Blue Lotus, he goes to China, I think China, Japan, again death. Everybody wants to kill him, which I was also, it was a very new to me discovery about how many people hate
Why
Tintin.
did they want to kill him?
They're all criminals. Mostly.
And is he a criminal buster? Did he like?
Apparently, I mean, that's the sort of sense that I had, that he is this kind of Sherlock Holmes. Like that's what I thought he was like. This Sherlock Holmes kind of guy who, is like super clever. He just seems to sort of stumble into discoveries. Just like, go. He's also very nosy, it has to be said, right? So he's a journalist, right? He's always going for the story.
He's a kid though, isn't he? Or a young person.
He seems to be like a tax-paying adult.
Oh, right, okay. I just always assumed he was, I don't know.
I
16, 17.
That's his job seems to be selling stories to newspapers.
Okay.
So I just assumed he was slightly older, but maybe child labor. Maybe that's what's going on. So he's just going to all these different countries, and he like is finding out, like, because he's so nosy, he's like so snoopy. He's just trying to find out where all the crime is happening.
Okay.
And he very luckily does find. But then, not so luckily, all the criminals know that, oh my God, Tintin is here, so then he's gonna like find us out. So his reputation precedes him. I don't understand how.
I feel like James Bond. Yeah. Like, he walks into the room and everybody knows he's James Bond, but they all kid on he's not James Bond.
Tintin, like everyone, like they'll see him from a train or something. Oh no, Tintin is here. It was a ride. So, and it's like, it's Snowy as well, like he can talk to Tintin. I don't know if Tintin understands him, but we understand him. And Snowy is just like this beleaguered little puppy who just wants an easy life, and Tintin is just taking him to all these dangerous places. And Snowy gets kidnapped. He's almost eaten. He's almost killed. He keeps like getting bumped by things that are aimed for Tintin.
Fine.
Collateral damage. Which is what I mean. It was much more mad than I thought it was, but really fun.
See, I've never read them either, or seen the film.
Yeah.
And obviously I thought he was just a child kind of moving along.
I feel like his reputation in the popular imagination has been laundered by I don't know what, because he is.
And when did they say it? Because they're not current.
No, they were set. So what started off my project is I read an article about somebody who was like revisiting Tintin, and like also there were 3 different editions. Like they grew up loving Tintin and were collecting the comics, and they had 3 different versions of Tintin in America. Because Hergé, however you say his name, who's the creator of Tintin, he because first he wrote it in comic strips. Then he sort of, when he was putting it together in the book form, he made changes there, and then he kept making changes. Like he kept like very George Lucas, like he kept revisiting and making changes to things. And he was never quite happy, I think, but he just like let it go. I guess very temperamental artist. So this article was analyzing sort of like what they preferred and like things like that. And it was written with a lot of like joy and enthusiasm about the book. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll give it a shot. And I did, and I was like, I don't think the article prepared me for the complete chaos. And I'm enjoying it. I'm quite enjoying it.
It's like Asterix, you know, they sit side by side with themselves, basically. And it's nothing, I've never been tempted. It's not something I've ever kind of really went for.
So Asterix, actually, I remember that I did come across as a kid. I was traveling when I was like younger. We'd had a family trip to Delhi, which is another like a big city in India, and we'd gone to like a bookshop, like a street stall sort of thing, and I found these 2 like the Asterix books, and I still remember they were gorgeous. They were the most stunning things I'd ever seen because they were full color and they looked really different from the kinds of books that I was used to. So I felt like, oh my God, they're like these special books. I tragically don't know what's happened to them. I keep wanting to hope that they're somewhere in my mum's flat, but I don't know. But I loved them so much. And like that's sort of the mystique of it. And I knew that there were more around. And Asterix movies as well. Like I watched them around the same time I watched Tintin. Again, great fun, full of hijinks, full of like a lot of people not taking themselves too seriously. Well, no, some of the people take themselves far too seriously, but the whole story doesn't. It's just like poking fun at everything. In this case, Tintin, including Tintin and Snowy themselves. And it's like a really light read, and it's really like sometimes you're like, what is going on? What is happening? But as a project, it's quite fun because you see the sort of like evolution of it a little bit as well, from where it went to no story to this like, but it's still the same vibe. And it is very similar to Asterix and Obelix. I think it's the French or the Belgian, whatever, European kind of attitude, but really fun. Yeah.
There you go, might give them a go. And again, they're the kind of books that, although they're classed as children's, I think anybody could read, even if they've not read them as a kid. Read them as an adult, as you have done.
Yeah. Well, Alex Johnson was saying that he grew up reading in the previous book that I was talking about. He grew up reading and loving Tintin. So when his kids were really young, what he would do is he would like open up, because these are quite tiny. The volumes I'm reading, traditionally they're a bit bigger, like the solo Tintin and Asterix. So with Tintin, he'd like sort of throw open the book and get his 2 kids, or 2 or 3, however many kids he had, around, and he would do the reading of the words, and they'd just be looking at the pictures because they were not quite ready to read them yet. And the shared experience became so important. And then when they were ready, came back to revisit. So he talks about like comic books and graphic novels and how important they are, like to kids, like literacy and visual literacy, and like loving books, but also like as adults, like you say, you just like read it just for fun, and it's still just as good.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you about my last book here.
Yeah.
The one that I saved from last time. And as we said before, Riot. Thank you. It's not that kind of riot.
Oh, right.
So apparently in this series, a collection of dragons is called a riot of dragons.
Oh.
So it's more... That was me breathing fire.
Yeah.
Although I don't think they breathe fire.
Yes. Oh, they're not in this one? No. Are they? No, I don't know.
No, the proper dragons. No, they do. No, they do. They absolutely do. That just went out my head. So it is by Rebecca Yarros, which has a huge following, which I was completely oblivious to. Completely oblivious to. Had very little books on my shelves to be read. I went, I'll read that, and I absolutely loved it.
Oh.
Not the naughty bits, but everything else. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, the romanticy of it all is what has made it super popular.
I skipped over those ones. But the actual story is brilliant, and I think for you, if you skip the naughty bits, you'd like it as well. It's got everything in it that we love. So basically, it starts out, and I've forgotten the heroine's name again, Violet. So it's in a fantasy world, and everybody has their own kind of place that they go. So they might be a scribe, they might be like a dragon rider, they might be whatever. She has 2 older siblings. Both went off to be dragon riders, but she was weakly when she was born. She's small, she's a bit poorly, so she was going to become a scribe. She was going to enter that, in her world. She was thinking that she would go and she would write about these battles that happened on the dragons and record history, and as opposed to making history. However, everybody else who becomes one of these joins this kind of army corps kind of thing, knows that they're going to do that, and so from basically birth they are training to do this. She's not done that. She's trained to become a scribe, and then 6 months before everybody goes their own way, she's told that she's to join the dragons. She's to go in and join, and she's like, but I'm weak and small and can't do that. Tough. You're from a family of dragon riders, you will become a dragon rider, etc.
Nepotism.
Yes, exactly. Her mum's like a kind of, and again, sorry, this is probably not exactly what she is, but it's like a kind of general, and he's like, no child of mine is going to become a scribe when they become a dragon rider. However, it's not that easy. So she learns that the first thing that you have to do is actually get to I'm going to call it a school for want of another word, university. You have to get there, and to get there, you have to cross this very long, very high up bridge, which is like a foot wide. And on the day that she does it, it's raining. So basically, a lot of people prepare and train for this, and we say 500, like a dozen eventually make it to the end. That they kind of whittle out through trials and all this kind of stuff, which I loved. It was very much like, yeah, you might be like the bully of the group and I think you're going to get your own dragon, but actually, someone's probably going to kill you to get your seat. It's one of those. So she gets across the bridge.
Nobody takes her seriously, I'm assuming.
Oh, absolutely. And again, you kind of know where it's going, but you're happy that and there is a huge twist, but never mind. So her older sister, kind of catches her before she goes, and she's like there in like a kind of billowy t-shirt and not the right shoes, and basically says you'll not get across the bridge like that. So has had clothes made for her small size and all that kind of stuff, and boots that will get her across this bridge, which will give her the and she's like, right, okay, that's great, but I want to be a scribe. She knows somebody over the other side, a childhood friend that she grew up with, And basically her sister says, when you get there, find him, he'll keep you safe. She's like, right, okay. I think he's been away for 2 years actually. And her sister says, don't make any friends, don't talk, nobody's your friend, everybody's out basically to kill you so that you don't kill them, kind of a thing. But of course, she's nice. And she meets a couple of people on the tower up to the bridge. And one of them has got really dodgy shoes on. So she swaps one of her boots for one of this other woman's boots. So they both get across. There's another guy as well. He doesn't survive. She also learns that as soon as she gets across, there is somebody who wants to kill her straight away because of who she is. So her mum is, I'm going to say Sorengale, is the family name, General Sorengale. And back in history, there was some kind of uprising, which you learn throughout the book, and all the parents were killed and all the children were told that they had to go through this to become dragon riders, and he's like the first one to have graduated, I suppose, and basically, he will try and kill her because, her parent killed his parent, kind of a thing. So she's already got enemies before she's even got there. She's quite small, she's quite weak, she can't fight like other people can fight, all this kind of stuff. If she gets hurt, it hurts her more than it would anybody else. But of course, she's also quite proud, so she doesn't want to show this. So she gets to the other side, she gets assigned to a wing, the fourth wing, and then there's all these different tests that they have to do. They have to do, it's about like being at university, they've got classes they have to go to, they've got like the kind of history, which she's really good at because that's what she thought she was going to be doing. And there's other classes, there's fighting classes and all this kind of stuff. And the idea is that you eventually bond with a dragon, and when you bond with a dragon, you get powers, not powers, but there's lots of different magics that people get, and it doesn't depend on the dragon. So you might be bonded with a dragon who was bonded 100 years ago with somebody. You'll have different powers. It's you that has the powers. There's all sorts of different things, like somebody can like recreate in 3D form everything that they've seen. So when they're teaching, they can just like put that out there, that kind of thing. Lots of different things. But I loved all the different things that they had to go through to even before they met the dragons, the riot of dragons. They have to climb up this kind of vertical cliff, and there's all sorts of things happening. And then once they finally get to where they're going, they have to walk through with all the dragons looking at them. And this is how I know that the dragons breathe fire, because the dragons also decide if they like you or not. And one of the people that's walking, so you walk, I don't know, however many meters, and then back again past this like gauntlet of dragons. And one woman's basically going, I'm strong, I'm going to get a good dragon, blah, blah, blah. And one of the dragons goes, no, I don't like you. And then she's no longer there. It's just a pile of dust. Embers. So although you might have like done everything that's been asked of you, a dragon might not like you, so you might not get chosen. And it's just, I just absolutely loved it. She makes enemies of other people as well, because people see her as weak. So they're like, you shouldn't get a dragon, because you'd be no use for the dragon. So we're just going to kill you so that you're not an option. Because there's only, say, 100 dragons, but there's like 500, people. They're just numbers I'm making up, by the way. So she makes this enemy straight away, and he's like, right there the whole way through the book, trying to kill her. The big main enemy, who anybody that's read it will know.
Not you.
Well, I know now. He's there in the background the whole time. There's all sorts of things going on. She's, she makes friends with this girl who's going across. She makes friends with another couple of people. And it's at the core of it, it's basically like a Naomi Novak book. It's like, they're in this school and they have to do this, but things are out to kill them, mainly other students and things like that. But I'm not going to spoil it too much, but she does get a dragon at the end of it, and it's not the dragon that you would expect her to get. And of course she can't even get on the dragon, and the dragons are very proud. They remind me of cats, and that they think that humans are just like, you know, they're, you know, to feed them or, you know, that kind of a thing. They're quite proud. They will not like go down to let you climb aboard. You have to, part of the some of the stuff they have to do is climbing up this cliff face, and that's so that you know that you can go on your dragon, because basically you have to climb up. Her dragon basically wants her, so will bend down. You know, she can't sit in the dragon because she doesn't have hips. Which, I mean, she has hips, but she doesn't have, like, she can't really sit on it. So, you know, things are adjusted for her, which would never have happened with anybody else. And of course, even when a dragon chooses you, it doesn't mean that you're bonded quite yet until you come into your powers. So there's still people trying to kill her, even though she's got a dragon.
Like Tintin.
Yes, basically everyone's trying to kill her. But she learns, and she uses her what other people see as weaknesses as her strength, and she comes around and is able to do things that other people can do, and sometimes better, because she does it her own way.
Okay. I was never interested in this series because I didn't know much about it, and I'm not a dragon girl. Like, I know some people love dragons. I have a friend who's obsessed with, like, you know, dragon books and things. So I was like, dragons, no dragons, whatever. But the romantasy put me off so much because I don't honestly, like, as much as I'm like anti like romance, I don't mind romance in books. Or like sex even, my problem is if that becomes the major part of this, like that becomes the point of the book. For me, if it's like a part of this overall story, like that's absolutely, like,
I
that's
would say
fine.
this
Yeah.
very much is, I mean, it didn't have to be as big as it was, but it's very much part of the story, is the fact that, I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't read it, but the fact that this person is there, and they shouldn't connect, and they do, you know, it is part of the story, and at the end, you know, there's a reason for it, kind of a thing. And I just skipped all the naughty bits. But I like that kind of, you know, like they were both kind of reluctant and they're both kind of fighting it. But there's a bigger story going on. So although that's happening, that's not, you know, the main thing. The main thing is everybody else trying to kill her.
No, because I think that, or at least I don't even actually know if that's true or it's just like sort of a preconceived notion I have. But in my head, like romantasy books or like just romance and whatever, science fiction, whatever book, is like the whole point, like the story is just like the plot and world is just background for like the romance bit. Whereas this is like,
It's the other way around.
Which, like, I have read so many books, which, you know, like have
right.
that.
Tea and cheese and
Which, so it's like that's fine for me. Which, so I would give it a shot.
No, absolutely. I read it without knowing any of the hype, without knowing anything, because I'm oblivious to all these kind of things, and I think that helped. That I just went into it, and as soon as I started reading it, and I could liken it to, like, you know, an Evil Hogwarts, or like, you know, the whatchamacallit book,
Solomon.
Thank you. You know, that kind of, like, you know, there's a school, you're there to learn things, but at the same time other things are happening. I quite liked it.
And also, like, it's honestly, I know, like, there's a lot of sort of talk about like book talk and stuff, like TikTok books, that TikTok makes books really popular, and it's, I think, great for encouraging like adult readers. You know, like how in this Alex Johnson says how to get kids excited about reading, but there are a lot of adults who have really bad experiences with reading, or who think of reading as a chore, or who think of reading the kind of reading that they did in school, where they had to like analyze and, you know, sort of like murder all enthusiasm and joy. And like books like this are really like getting like maybe readers who don't read so much as well as readers who do, like you. And even if it's like the sex, the romance, or whatever, the dragons, whatever it is bringing them into, or the hype on TikTok, it's nice that they're like, you know, discovering this thing that they might not have. Like, I know there was someone on my train when I come into work, when the third book or whatever the most recent book that came out was, had like this big fat hardcover that she'd be like carrying and like just like reading. So I'd be reading my book and she'd be reading her book. And it was just nice to have that sort of, yeah.
I think this would appeal to people, a lot of people like watch Game of Thrones and things like that, never read the books, but it's made them suddenly realise that, there's a difference between some kind of fantasies and other kind of fantasies, if you know what I mean. And it's, as I say, this isn't about the romance as such. It's more about, survival and friendship and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the romance in it, I'm sure will appeal to people.
And it does.
And bring them in.
Absolutely. And like, for example, like even you and I, we read we love the same fantasy book for different reasons as well. So the reason doesn't really matter if like all the sex and the romance is what's, getting you into it and like making you see that, oh look, books can be fun.
Yeah.
It's great. I think there's like, I don't know if it's a trilogy or if it's over, but you do have a lot more books.
Yes.
A lot more story to look forward to.
Yes, I have book 2 in the house now. And if I could, I would have read them basically end to end.
Yeah.
Because the way this one finishes, you immediately want to know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're like, oh,
I love that. I've been wanting to get into a series. Like, I miss my Charlemagne Stamson days.
It's that kind of a thing that you think the story's got to where it's going, and then, oh no, we've pulled the rug out from under you, and you go, oh, okay, wait a minute. I spent the whole book knowing this fact, and you just proved me wrong. So how is that?
See, that sold it to me. If you would have I'm sold.
No, I really, really enjoyed it. And as I say, you might have heard of it for other reasons, but I hadn't, and going into it blind, it was just wonderful.
I really should get over my romantasy sort of, because again, like I don't think I've actually ever tried a book like this or like Sarah J. Maas and stuff as well.
I mean, if I was going to say what kind of book this was, I wouldn't have said it was a romantasy. Do you know what I mean? I would have just said it was a fantasy book.
I think it's publishers jumping on the hype train as well, because they know that it'll appeal to like a certain kind of reader who wants to, like, how if we like mystery stories or detective stories, we want to read all kinds of books that fall into golden age, like of crime or whatever. So romantasy has just become like this catch-all term, which is a bit unfortunate for me personally, because I'm like it's putting me off. Yeah,
exactly.
But this is great because this is one of the ways talking to people about the different kinds of books and what they read about it is a great way for adults or for children to like find out, to discover.
And I would say the very last bit on the blurb at the back says graduate or die.
Oh, that does sound very Naomi coded. Well, a lot of discoveries there. Yeah. Yes. How did you fit this into discoveries?
I can't remember.
I don't think you mentioned.
Because we discover something right at the end of the book.
Oh,
that we thought was fact, and is fact not fact, if that makes sense.
Well done, you saved it right in the end. Well, okay, I think our discoveries were pretty discoverable, discovery worthy. What about next time?
Well, the next time, we've thrown us again. The next theme is back in the box.
Oh.
Back in the box.
Well, that could be a wide interpretation.
Not Jack in the Box, which was what I thought it was beginning. Back in the box.
No, but like, for example, your Alex Bell, the Train of Dark Wonders thing, a doll that comes alive at night and tries to stab you is something that I would want to put back in the box. So it's a wide interpretation.
Absolutely.
So, well, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I have no idea what I'm going to fit in, but we'll find out.
We will.
Until then, hopefully you find some books that you've
discovered something yourself.
Yes, and tell us about it. I want to know more. Like if you love romantasy and you want to convert me to your cult, do it. How are you going to convert me to your cult? The challenge, but yes, I definitely want to read Fourth Wing. I think I'm going to give it a shot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me discover something new.
Thank you.
Bye.